Guys. Okay, you're all a witness. This is recording. Okay. Well, let me see here what we got. Yay, some of you guys are here. All right. Okay, so yeah, hopefully you saw my message in school. The only four, how interesting, the number four, 4 seconds recorded, 4 seconds recorded in that class. And of course, I was giving you guys like I was giving you the code. I gave you the key codes. So luckily, I kind of like sat with it and I was like, okay, this is good. It's from the creator. And, now I even have more clarity because my guy and I, we have been deep diving. We have been like working this formula like cold case detectives this week. And of course, we're just using like our own reports, and then it's like how my reports work with his reports that work with this reports, and then all the people that live in my house's reports. I mean, at least a few of their signs. I'm not like getting all in their business, but and I'm like, it just proving itself, proving itself, proving itself, proving itself. So the more clarity I have, then again, right? So what we're going to talk about today is going to be something that I feel is essential uh, for moving forward, because the concept of this particular group is channeling, right? Opening up the channel and realizing that we're always channeling no matter what. So, um, what I would like for you guys to do is also know that this class will be put in Jedi, because this class is going to be like fundamental for like where what anchor point you are creating from. Okay. So, and again, Andy, at some point, I would like to do maybe even a workshop on this. If you feel inspired, because we could get really, really deep. But what I want to do today is kind of give a flash concept. We're going to kind of revisit the 7 Hermetic principles and the concept of angels, spells, curses, all right, and what we would call like evil eye. Let me write a note here so I don't forget. Okay. So obviously we all come from background in either kind of religious studies or new age studies or metaphysics studies or combination of all. And we all have our like linear belief system around what angels are. Okay. And we might have an idea of what a curse is, what a spell is, what an evil eye is, what is a self concept, what is an assumption. So today I'm going to try in an hour to break down all like kind of 4 of these elements to show you how you are either quantum leaping your desires or you are self sabotaging with the me, myself, and I, right? Which is the mother, father, child energy. So the thinking process, okay, the feeling process, and the doing process. Okay, so the mother is the feeler, the father is the thinker, right, and the child is the doer in this little story. And this is why it's going to go perfect with the Jedi. At some point, we're going to go deeper. But today, what I wanted to do is share a kind of an easier, more simpler awareness or understanding of angels as far as your game. Okay, because there is angels on every dimension of reality, and the angels that we're aware of are kind of like the archangels, and then the angels of light, and there's angels of darkness, there's the fallen angels, then there's like demonic realm, and there's just like almost like a military of the angelic realm. Okay. And just because like if you go into the spirit realm, it is in dimensions, it is in densities, and it is set up very much like a kingdom and or a military. There's like levels. Okay. And who are you? Right? What part do you play in angel creation and working with angels is the most important thing for you to study. or to understand. Because when we study the archangels, then we think that we are calling them in to work with us, which is true, but there is a much more micro of creation happening that I didn't even truly understand was what an angel was, because when we get into studying, and hopefully by now all of you guys have taken the Kabbalah 1. I know I've talked about it in the fellowship. I know I've talked about it in the channeling group. You know, it's just Kabbalah 1. I'm not teaching it. David Guillaume is teaching it. He's fantastic. And he's going to give you the study of the Kabbalah, which is the study of the vessel, which is how we receive. So it's Kabbalah means to receive. And again, if you're thirsty and you're really thirsty and you want to take water to go, right, you're going to need a cup. So what we're doing is we're creating a vessel to receive light. And so we are taught exclusively in manifestation how to ask, how to, how to line it up, how to visualize, but nowhere except Kabbalah that I'm aware of actually teaches the science of how to create the vessel to hold the light that you're asking for. And it also teaches you, what the vessel that you currently have looks like and why you can't have it, you can't hold it, you can't keep it, you can't create it for long terms, or you're not able to create it at all. And that is not coming from creation. That is coming from the vessel health. And now your body is one vessel, so your body is almost like the hologram of all of your vessels. And your vessels are going to be set up in your particular astrology chart based on your higher purpose and your limitations. Okay, so the limits that you came in with, like your own baggage versus your untapped, unrealized potential. So both of those are going to be vibrating. And then it's the game of like Adam and Eve that go from the fall of, guilty by association, and they've kicked out of heaven, and then you're born in your family and you're abused and you're rejected and you're abandoned and you're forsaken, and then you go through your journey and you allow pain to awaken you even further until you begin to remember. And then when you begin to remember, then you go for like your crucifixion, where you're like publicly humiliated and sacrificed and all these things. And that is when the game starts to get really hard. Because you are now, as soon as you kind of like going through your awakening is one thing, but to actually like shine from that place of awakening, or share from that place of awakening, or create from that place of awakening is where most people hit the glass ceiling. So they end up kind of living a double life where they know, but they don't do, or they teach other people to have, but they can't have. And in this incarnation, we are all lined up. The planets are lined up. The retrogrades are lined up. Like, this is your year. This is the year that all of that work that you've been working on can come together, as long as you understand how this game works and who you are in the game, who you're playing with in the game, what your co-stars, your players represent, what your playground represents, and then you can have kind of a non-biased, non-analytical observer, stand back, look at the game, pause, and go in and out. And so we've been doing a lot of deep work on this concept in Jedi and in our vessel workshop that we did like impromptu that Andy's helping me with. Thank goodness. But today I want us to really start to kind of like hyper, like turn the volume up on awareness in the concept of, maybe a lot of us don't know this, but every thought we think creates an angel, because you are the child of God. And all angels, which is fallen angels and higher angels, are all in service to man and woman. All of them. Dark is in service to us, the light is in service to us, and we're creating it all. So imagine that you are actually right now in your own womb, okay? And the only thing in your womb is your fractured consciousness. Okay. Which means that right now you're like, part of you is asleep, but you're in a womb, and this womb means matrix. Okay. And this, in your particular womb, in your particular movie, in your particular story, everyone in your story has something to do with your limit or your potential. Everyone. Everyone you see on the street, everyone you bump into, everyone in traffic, which means that you will never actually come into contact with anyone, anything in your whole lifetime that isn't a part of you somehow. Okay. Now that's not important to try to figure out, how do you relate to me? You don't need to worry about that, because every lifetime that we don't figure this out, we shatter. Okay. We shatter into more pieces. So it becomes almost like a search party where I can say, I'm not finding it. So you go that way, you go that way. And then we all go on these different missions with the same intentions, but yet different aspects of, creator, right? To try to bring us back into union with who we are as creators. Okay. So there's going to be like that vase shattering, and there's going to be big pieces, and there's going to be small pieces, and there's going to be little shreds that want to cut you, right? And that's you. That's all of us. And if you notice, the world is kind of getting bigger, so you can see that we've been fracturing and fracturing and fracturing and fracturing more and more and more. And the concept is that at some point we will all become one, hence the Messiah, right? So that's the game, and it's a hologram. But in this particular game, you get to play the Son of God, right, or the child of God, and 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 so what you think is created on some dimension. Now, remember, we're playing in physical reality, which is only 1% of our visibility. When you look at form, that's only 1% of your visibility, which means that there's 99% unseen world. And that is where those angels are created from your thought. They're not going to go into physical reality and be like, hey, and have a face and a name and be like, hey, as soon as you make a thought, you're not going to be able to see them. But every thought you think, okay, is creating an angel. And through Kabbalah, the understanding of what an angel means, it's a conscious energy source created through a thought. So the energy of ether, when you think a thought, it is now that formation of ether is gathering together, and it is making a little personality out of the thought. Now, if the thought is in lack, you're creating a dark angel for yourself. Okay? If you're thinking in positivity or, oneness or prosperity, you're creating an angel of light. Okay? And so when we think that there's a big devil out there that we're all playing against, that isn't true, because I'm in my own womb right now talking to aspects of myself. And you're in your own womb watching an aspect of yourself. Okay. So I can't even work with other people's creative angels. I can only ever interact, intertwine, channel, or be possessed by my own. Because that is where the free will comes in. Right? It's not like I'm going to deal with my own creations and then everyone else's creations in every other movie. But what we are taught to believe in religion and in New Age culture is that angels are already existed, and there's not any more being created, and they are working with us or against us. That is what we believe. But that is important that you understand that that's not true, because when you understand that you are God, then every thought you think creates. And you've heard that, but you're always thinking, well, where does it go? And again, one thought, right? But what happens is, because that thought becomes conscious, that thought becomes alive. And now that thought is yours. And so again, now it's going to be a part of your field. So if it is a lack thought, the next time something good starts to happen or the energy starts to shift, that thought is going to speak to you. Okay. And so that is like one thing you want to step back and think. And again, it's very impossible to control all of your thoughts because a lot of the thoughts are these angels that are already created. Like they're thinking for you. This is how you know when you generate thought, like I'm gonna create a thought right now. Or the thoughts are just there. Like being able to kind of like maybe sit in stillness to see the difference. You know, the thoughts that I generate because I choose, or the thoughts that are available because I've already created. Okay. Now it's always going to be kind of vibration because if you go just scan over the 7 hermetic laws, it will explain angels, spells, and curses very thoroughly in those 7 hermetic laws. Because again, as the Son of God, everything you do has a cause and effect. Everything. Everything you don't do has a cause and effect. And so we could be being of service, we could be loving, we could be kind, we could be doing great work. But if we are generating a lot of negative energy angels through our thoughts, then we are also going to be held back by those thoughts, you know, and so as you get more aware of every thought creates an angel, okay, then that angel is it's conscious energy. That's what angel means in Kabbalah, conscious energy. So thought is the thought, right? First hermetic principle, everything is mind. So if the thought is generated, right, by me and it's a negative thought, okay, it's not just a thought that like wants to come in that I can entertain or not, and it's negative, then I'm going to create a negative angel in there. Okay, which means that all the thoughts that you have around you right now that are not like intentional creations are just angels you've created in the past. And again, we've done a lot of like send that energy to the light. You know, we've done a lot of awareness around having these dark entities with us, walking with us, but we want to understand that it's not just like there's a few of them there. Every thought we think is creating new ones. And this can be a very scary burden or a heavy responsibility, and that's why I'm sharing it. Because we're about to go into a very important retrograde that is going to like really either put you on the 5D map for residency or you're going to go back into a healing state. You know, you're either going to be growing or healing, right? You're either going to be expanding or contracting after this Venus retrograde. And I talked a little bit about it in the session, and I will talk about it again when I redo the class because it's super important and it will be really easy for you to figure out what to let go of and what to bring in if you know what aspects you want to play with. And I'm not going to go any deeper into that. So let's talk about how these thoughts, right, are creating. Now, your words are going to be a stronger version of that. Because the word of God, right, is a command. So a thought is going to create like a little entity, like almost like a parasitic, kind of a fly in your ear, a mosquito at the lake, but it's going to be there. It's not going to have a lot of power. It's not going to have a lot of form. Okay. It's going to reside in the spirit world. But thought creates matter. And this is what, I'm sorry, word creates matter. So you really need to understand that the words you speak can create a physical representation of this angel. All right? So what that means is that if you speak negativity about someone, you are creating a negative angel to be someone. And I will give you explanations for this. And I'm trying to explain this as simply as I can because this is not easy to explain. Okay, but when you step back and you look at it childlike, right? The Word of God is creation of form. Okay? God thought about the world and then he spoke the world. The sound is what creates atoms to come together and make form. Okay, like the Big Bang. So now, right, think about the negative thoughts you have versus the negative people in your reality. Okay, because the words actually give substance of form to this angelic realm. This is why when you're cursing traffic, you're actually creating negative, that energy you were putting out that's going to have to come back, because the sixth hermetic law is cause and effect. So whatever I speak will come back to me. And the analogy Kabbalah 1 uses is that if you think about someone being overweight in judgment, your metabolism immediately slows down that quickly, instantly, because everything is cause and effect. And even though we experience a time buffer, you might not notice that your metabolism is slowing down like 1 point or 1 degree, and you might not ever really notice it slowing down because you're not out there, constantly creating that same energy. But that is going to be energy in motion, and it is going to come back to you. So whatever judgment you have on another, it's going to come back to you at some point, right? Either through the thinking space or the physical representation. So that's where it's this is like great power comes great responsibility. We can't just be like out there thinking that we're great humans and while we're thinking negatively about people, right? We can't be trying to, act as creator and be giving and sharing and loving and then be speaking evil over someone. All right. And again, that is one thing that Kabbalah focuses highly on is, who you're around, who you let into your reality, your influence, like everything is so adaptable and influencing because your reality is your environment, and that is going to be connecting with your DNA and your body. So your body doesn't really know what's going on, but it is playing the character of the environment. So your avatar is always going to be adapting to the environment and then playing off the environment. So if you create a negative environment, then that will create a negative avatar. If you create a positive environment, even if it doesn't exist, you're creating a positive avatar and lots of little angel helpers, right, to assist with you. So in the beginning, when we start to create more affirmations of positive angels, it's almost like a spiritual war happens because we've spent so long creating all these little negative angels that whisper in our ear and, oh, the bottom is going to fall out and this is too good to be true. And I'm not great with tech. So of course my videos have to get erased. You see, so it's like we're just manifesting what we have created. And again, I might choose that I don't want to believe that anymore because, hey, if I can understand quantum IT and recoding, then I can definitely change my belief system about computers, which was a good slap in the face and an awareness that I need to change those angels into good angels, right? Because again, it's like if you're experiencing almost like a haunting or a backfire, well, Kabbalah teaches us that we all have our own individual Satan. And Satan is here to play your opposition. Okay? It is here to keep you out of the kingdom. It is here to keep you away from Creator. It is here to keep you in the tree of knowledge. And in the tree of knowledge, you can't logically understand angels. You cannot. Because in the tree of knowledge, it is only what you can see and prove that can truly exist. So this is where your opposition is always going to lead you to for your proof. And this is where you have to understand that Kabbalah came before a lot of the other scripture, and it teaches about the vessel. It teaches about the angelic realm. It teaches about these things, but it teaches it all through numerology and universal laws. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to kind of look at the voices in our ear right now, and are they there? And again, the ones that we have in our ears that are negative, they've been there. Remember, we called them in. Okay, so whenever we are confused or afraid or shocked or blindsided or distracted, okay, this is usually when, by mistake, we're going to create a negative angel. Okay, because again, as soon as you're confused, if you do not ask for clarity or pause, you're going to go right into logic, which is lack, and then you're going to search for abundance in lack. And right then and there, if you say, I don't know how to do this, I'm all alone, then through the power of that feeling state and the thought, you created a little tiny angel that says, I'm all alone, right? And now it's going to whisper in your ear. You created it. So now what if over here you start doing inner work and you don't feel like you're alone anymore? But this voice in your head keeps telling you you're alone. So there is going to have to be some purification that happens through what you have allowed in your vessel, because these little angelic entities that I would say the thought forms, okay, the thought forms are going to be in the spirit world. You're not going to necessarily see it, but they're going to help the child of God out of how it was created. So if you say, I'm all alone, then that's its job. Its job is to make you think you're all alone, feel all alone, and act all alone. Its job. You summoned it, you created it as the child of God. And again, that's going to bump up against logic. Because if I feel alone and I see that I'm alone and I think I'm alone, well, aren't I alone? No. You've just created this extra consciousness that's now adding with the awareness consciousness that you've had, and it's either going to help you move into prosperity or back to scarcity. So there is a process that there is kind of a purification of the vessel. There is a cleanup that has to happen. And there is also, that is why we pause, okay? And we want to pause because in that moment, we're pausing. It's almost like we are hitting pause in your movie and everything freezes, okay? And so the hologram is going to freeze for you when you say pause. And that means everything has to freeze. Okay? Everything in your hologram has to freeze. All of your little creations, all of your Satan energy, right? Everything is going to freeze so that you can reset, decide. That is your only moment of free will. Did you know that? You do not have free will when the game is playing. You only have free will when you pause. Okay? Just like if you're watching a movie, you can't change what's happening in the movie. But if you don't like it, you can pause and get up and go into a different movie. But you can't change the movie just because you don't like it. That movie's running, that destiny, that level of the video game is going to play out as long as you stay in that level. And the more negative energy you create in that level, the harder it is to get off. Because now you have so many beliefs that it's hard, that it's going to be very difficult for you to get into a lighter reality, which is the next density up, that has different belief systems. So it's almost like all these little angels are created, they help reinforce the original belief system, whether you truly believed it or not. You could have just been having a pity party. You could have just been angry, right? But the power inside of you is so extreme. You're like God walking around, that in that second it is created. Okay? So when you put words together, you are creating spells, right? They're enchantments, and they have absolute power over your game, okay? And so if you believe, based on logic, circumstantial proof and evidence, that you have no money, and you say, like, I am broke, right? I don't mean that, right? Right? Then you just casted a spell on yourself with the I am. Now, here's the kicker, because everything is cause and effect and everything is you. If you say, she's broke, okay? The witness and judgment of someone else with circumstantial proof, but no understanding of 99%, now creates a curse on you and them. This is why it's so hard to get off the island. This is why it's so hard to get off this level, because we have the best of intentions, but we have been modeled, trained, programmed, educated in the world that teaches us how to create negative angels all the time, for everything. There isn't anything in the third dimensional vessel creation that is going to teach you how to make positive angels until you start to get into the higher levels of spiritual training. And again, what they're going to call it is they're going to call it an affirmation or a statement. But what it really is, it's angels and curses and spells. And when we don't take this seriously, because our logic cannot prove this, then we are sentencing ourselves. Look at the word sentence, putting words together. When you put words together, you are sentencing yourself, either something positive or something negative. Okay? And you have to be aware that the only way that you can change the creation that you just made or just cursed or just casted is to pause. That's the only way that you can change what you just did. Okay? And if you don't change it, if you're like, well, I'll try better next time, it's okay. But the energy is going to come back to you as the form of cause and effect, because everything is now going to change your frequency and vibration because it's yours. So people are like, I need to raise my vibration. But what they're doing is they're creating so many curses and negative angels that they're lowering their own vibration with their unconscious communication. Okay? And when we react, all right, when we react and then we speak as if based on logic, that is the tree of knowledge. We're acting as the avatar of that is true, and then we're reinforcing that. So if you do not start to catch this stuff, what's going to happen is, this is to open the channel class, is that if you have enough dark angels or negative angels created, then when that circumstance comes back, an opportunity for you to experience being alone, they will channel all through you and react for you. And it will be a grandiose, completely unconscious experience, which means that you might have a gang now of you've felt alone so many times and spoken it so many times, and you've seen so much proof of it now that you have built your own little thug team of I'm a lone angel. And then of course, because that starts to vibrate, because that's another law of the Hermetics, is everything is vibration, it starts to create a frequency. Frequency is what I frequently think and feel and do. And now I'm lining up to experience the manifestation of form of my accumulated angelic friends. Now, again, they're all in service. It's all play. It's all fun. And so we don't want to be like, ugh. But the thing is if you guys are not aware of this, which I was not. I mean, I knew thoughts create, blah, blah, blah. But when we're taught this kind of thoughts create stuff, we're looking at it like the thoughts that I put a lot of energy on. Not all the thoughts. Every thought creates an angel. Every thought. And again, it will either have the essence of separation or it will have the essence of creator. Always. And so depending on the energy of the thought. Okay. If it is lack, it will be separation angel. It will be an angel now that's job is to be alive in separation. And so it is going to act and it's going to feel, because it's a living, breathing consciousness. It's a baby. You created it. And that is why they do not want us to know that we are really children of God, that creating with every thought. Now, I'm going to give you some help here. The thoughts that you're thinking that aren't your thinking, that are just there, that have already been created, they don't really have power to manifest for you. They're just instigating. What their job is to do is get you to react. Okay, so let's say you've created, I don't know, 15,000 I'm alone angels, just over proof and repetitive manifestation. Okay, so there's a gang there. Now they're starting to gather in power and strength, and they want to kind of like, they want to live, they want to experience this aloneness that you've created them to be. And so they're going to start setting this timeline up for you to be alone. And when it happens, right, because it will, then if you are not present to pause, they are going to react, which means that they are going to act out the recreation of themselves. They take over the avatar and they speak through you, and then that could create another manifestation that way. But if you don't react, like if they go, oh, and you don't go, you don't buy in, you don't agree, you don't react, you don't act out, you don't animate that thought, it has no power. It's just there. It's just there. It cannot get bigger unless you agree with it. And looking at the agreement is almost like that's the evoke, because as soon as the child of God agrees with the thought, it becomes alive. Okay? If it's there and you're just like, whatever, no, I choose not to believe in that anymore. So I'm going to pause and be like, wow, that was a lack thought that I could easily say, because it's starting to look like it's proving itself again. But what I do is I choose to pause, and I choose to go think of a positive angel I can create right now. And I choose to go into prosperity, even in my feeling state, and imagine a prosperous moment for myself, or the same situation differently. And now I'm actually coming back into the game, creating a positive angel, because you will need to do this a lot. This is why in the beginning you're pausing so much. But what some of you are doing is you're pausing to take a breath, and then you're coming back into the fight. Because you're coming back into lack. When you come back into lack is waiting. And lack has proved itself. Abundance hasn't proved itself yet. Because think about it. In the world of 3D, which is controlled by separation, and it is controlled by, the underworld angels, okay? Then what is going to be easier for you to generate throughout the day? Negative angels or positive angels? So the only reason that you are experiencing lack is because you have created more negative angels than you have positive ones to reinforce and create a bigger frequency for you. Because if you have a bunch of negative energy that you've created in the form of angelic space, then you're also probably manifesting a lot of lack. There's proof of lack that keeps you in the tree of knowledge, reinforcing. So you're not going to go, oh, I'm going to create a positive angel here, right? Or I'm going to go back and retract it, because you can do that too. And there's ways to do all of this, because anything you can create, if you pause it and you do it in the pause, you can edit only in the pause. Only. You can't be like, blah, 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 oh, I should have said that. My bad, delete. Doesn't work that way. You literally have to ask the game to pause, because it's set up that way. Because nothing is going to pause if you keep it running. Because what will happen is those thoughts will turn into more thoughts, will turn into more thoughts, more thoughts. And now what you're doing is you're gathering strength in this concept, in this identity, in this personality. And now it's going to be like, that's going to be like your fear-based thought or your judgment. And you're not going to feel like you really have a lot of power to control it. Okay, so what I would say is the best advice is you slow down to speed up so you can catch yourself and you can pause more and you don't come back into the game without an abundant thought about either the same situation or something. If it's too scary to think about something positive, you think about something totally different. Because this is the game of literally, it's going to be opposition versus allies. And you want to start really creating a lot of allies for yourself. Now, when we start creating a lot of those I am affirmations, I am powerful, I am poised, right? But we don't pause the game, then, and we don't go back and start deleting some of this consciousness, then now we're just like, we've had a whole lifetime of creating negative angels. It's probably outweighs the positive angels we've created by like, I don't know, 10 to 1 because of our environment. And so how can the 1% positive really real without circumstantial proof, because you haven't created enough positive angels to create physical manifestation yet? Because it's like it needs to gather particles together to create form, especially through the spoken word. So you start speaking the spoken word, all hell breaks loose because it becomes like a spiritual war inside of you. Okay, and that I have seen every single person experience that who started all of a sudden going into positive thoughts, positive thinking, positive speaking. Okay, and I feel like there's nothing wrong with that because it's a detox, because it's coming up to the surface for you to decide, do I want to believe this still? But if you don't know that you've created this, then you're going to have victim consciousness here, and victim consciousness is going to allow the opposition to be in charge 100%. Even if you're a spiritual person and you're on your journey and you're a good person and you're kind, it has nothing to do with that. Think about it. I'm sure you've seen some really kind, loving people that have really bad luck, so to say, or they're really sick, and they don't really look like victims because they're doing all these good deeds, but they are creating this because the proof is actually in the 7 Hermetic laws. Now, every angelic energy is also going to have a gender. Okay? It is going to either be masculine or it is going to be feminine based on what you think it say. Okay? Now, if we look at our opposition in its description through Kabbalah, and again, I don't think this is taught in Kabbalah 1, but if you just understand that everything has a gender, that there is a masculine opposition and there is a feminine opposition, and same with the angelic community, right? And so thinking about what the opposition is going to do in the masculine is going to be all about confusing you. So when you start to feel confused, that's that masculine. So now let's go back to the baseline of our own Trinity. Okay, Trinity, our Trinity, what makes up the child of God, the entity, the vessel, the creation, the creation. It is the Father energy, the thought of God. It is the feminine energy of creation, which is the feeling. And it is the behavior or the animated avatar, which is the child. Okay, birthed by the collaboration of the masculine, feminine energy, which is you. Okay, now what happens is the more you have followed confusion, the more you have possessed your own masculine energy. The more you have followed distraction, the more you have possessed your feminine energy. So now, let's say you did both, because I know I have, right? And the way to the kingdom is to create harmony in the marriage so the inner child feels free to create and safe to create, but mom and dad can't get along. And so the thoughts and the feelings are in constant opposition with each other. And so now the inner child behavior that they're creating it's not, you're not wanting to show up that way. You're not wanting to behave that way. You're not able to do what you want to do. You can't learn the way you want to learn. You don't know how to perform the way you want to perform. You don't know how to retain the way you want to retain because the inner child is feeling confused, right? And distracted. So that is going to be what's going to show up. And this sounds very complicated, but this is actually nothing new that we've been taught in every other new age or metaphysics or quantum healing. It's just the way that the Kabbalah teaches it, is that you are either adding allies every day or you're adding opposition. And it's not just like Satan is going to be like in your life and he's going to go take a smoke break. No, it's like it's 24 hours a day. And if I'm adding negative energy to my field, then I am responsible for all of those little angels that I have created. Okay. And if they don't produce fruit, they don't create life. They don't create anything. They destroy, they contract, they divide, they separate. Okay. And that is going to be what my physical reality is going to show me, because my physical reality is going to be the summation of my vibration and frequency. So it's not personal. It's just that when we realize that we are living in a reality in our own little womb here that is not matching the abundance of our heart, the prosperity of our nature, of who we want to be as the inner child of God, then we go in and we start taking physical responsibility by practicing the pause. And then when you practice the pause, you want to make sure that when you come back, you're either going to be going into the lion's den, okay? Because they're waiting, especially if you come back in with the same vibration. But if you come back in with new thoughts and new words, right, and new ideas, no matter how you feel, okay? Because here's the thing, the word of God is going to create regardless of the emotional state, okay? That's when we say, oh, I didn't mean it. Still, we created it. And it is going to be cause effect. Now, if you did Kabbalah 1, you'll understand the concept of tikkun. Tikkun is the estimation of all of your limitations and potentials, which means all of your incarnation wheel, whether it's all happening at once or whatever, it is the summation of who you have attached to you. So you come in as a child of God, your astrology chart's going to be your 12 disciples. That's all going to be taught in Jedi. But the idea is that when you come in, let's say you come in and you're already coming in with some negative energy that you've already brought with you. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to think, feel, and see negativity if you came in with some, which we all do. So once we know better, we have to think better, we have to speak better, and we have to do better no matter what we see, no matter what circumstance we're in, no matter what environment we're in, because our environment was created out of the vibration of all of me, which means that I'm a child of God, pure of heart. None of this is actually happening to me, but I'm summoning, evoking, producing, creating negative entities, angels, to now walk with me, right? So when you hear the scripture where Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." This is very important because I did not learn this until just a few weeks ago. The reason why he says, "Get behind me," and I cast you out, is because the game is set up in the dualistic nature of the Antichrist and Christ. So Satan isn't going anywhere. But what he says is, "Get behind me, Satan," so I can lead you instead of you leading me. So it's actually loving. It's a loving command. And that's what we want to do with those thoughts that are negative, that are saying you're alone, when yes, you are alone in physical reality, proof of logic, but you choose to have a different story. And you know it's going to take a little time to generate new allies and new circumstances and new beliefs. It's going to take a little bit of a certainty without logic. It's going to take a little space. It's going to take a little clearing. You know, it's going to take some kind of repentance, which means you change your mind. But then what you will start to see is that the allies start to gather momentum, okay? And then when we do recognize a negative thought, what you can do is you can transform the negative angel into the positive angel as long as you have the frequency of love. Okay, if you're mad at this angel, you have no power because you are the same vibration as the angel. But let's say you pause and you go, wow, that was a really negative thought I just had. Okay, and I'm going to pause and I'm going to go just drop into my heart and feel prosperity. And that could be as simple as remembering a prosperous moment, or imagining a prosperous idea, or seeing, thinking of something that you love. That's going to take you into prosperous state, prosperous city. Then when you come down, you're going to have love and compassion, realizing that you made this negative angel in a dark time of your life, or when you were unconscious, or when you were hungry or tired. And now what you can do is you can tell that angel, I love you, loneliness. Okay. I see you, I hear you, you're safe, you can go to the light. So what's going to happen now is loneliness and love are going to mix and collaborate. That entity is going to go back to the light, and you've created an ally. Okay? So we don't see this very quickly because of how much we've gathered, but there is a tipping point. And this is why, we want to make sure that we don't go on, why is this taking so long? I've been at this for so long. Because in 1 second, everything could change. It could be like, I'm going, nothing's happening. I'm going, shit's hitting the fan. I'm going, I'm manifesting all this horrible stuff. I'm doing it, the bottom's falling out, but I stay with it, I stay with it. And then in one day, in one moment, you go all the way into the bliss. Like it all happens at once. Because again, there is that consistency and that discipline. So if we look at, we've got our 12 disciples, okay, that we're working with, aspects of the mind. They are half limitation, half potential, okay? Our job is to discipline them. Discipline the positive side of them. So let's look at Aries, right? Aries is one of your disciples, and it's going to be somewhere in your chart, right? So if we were going to look at a negative side of Aries, that's a forest fire. That's destructive. That could kill. Let's look at the completely positive side of fire. Warming, substance, like health, a fever, right, is going to nurture the body. So healthy fire is warming, it's earthing, it's living, it's surviving, right? It's essential for life. This is why your body temp is a certain temp. If it gets too high, you die. So again, that disciple is always going to be on that edge between forest fire, nice little warm, cozy fireplace, or smoke, which is going to be kind of like the absence of your fire when you lose your desire. And you will all have your personal board, so I'm not going to go into everyone, but you get the concept. So again, if you want to get really proactive here, okay, then you ladies, you want to know what cycle you are in your cycle, because this is going to cause you to be more analytical, more stuck in the past, more worried about the future, because you're in that letting go of that vessel. You're sacrificing your own womb space to create a new one. Okay, so again, that loss, that abandonment, that rejection, those feelings are going to be in your biological field, and they're going to start triggering all the little angels around you to speak up and point out and manifest and do. Okay, and guys are going to have their own, but they're in a 1-day life cycle, so they could catch this much easier, because it's their ovulation space is in their morning wood. So it's it's done, and then they're into the next cycle. So they could probably catch this easier, right? And this is why you see so many guru men out there. You don't see a lot of guru women, is because it takes a lot longer for us to break down our vessel and regenerate it Plus, the way we're going to be manifesting, correct way to manifest is in the shadow, and the light manifests in the light. Okay, that's another class. But this is the class to me that if you don't truly embody this, it doesn't matter if I give you all the key codes. It won't. You could know exactly how to beat this game, go from Adam to Eve to Christ, and you won't get there because of this. This is your make or break. Because without allies, right? If you guys watch The Chosen, how hard was it for Jesus to do what he was doing with those 12 egoic, unworthy, loving beings, that were like constantly like bickering with each other and, worried about him and seeing him do miracles and then wondering how they were going to eat the next day. I mean, it was heavy on him. And so that's what it's like when you are walking around with all this energy you've created out of lack of self-worth, lack of money, lack of time, and you don't realize that you're not that person anymore. So the concept of my game that I'm creating is called Dying to Live, because there is that part of you that has been listening and mentoring and allowing and inviting and following these little creations from your whole life. And they will not go away until the vibration of your field changes. So either you clean house, right? You fast out and you get really hyper aware of like, what is your thinking? What is your doing? And I'll give you an example of this because it is also about how you show up. Okay. So let's say this. I think I create a little entity that's just going to be like a little voice in my ear. I speak, I create an actual physical embodied version of what I spoke somewhere. Okay? It's gonna come back into my reality at some point at whatever cycle it needs to. Okay, it's not gonna be like in my ear like the little thought was. It's gonna be more of like a living, breathing word that I'm going to hear back. Now, this is important. Let's say you've said something negative about yourself. Okay? And now someone else has to say that to you. They have to, because it's cause and effect. And if it is out of alignment with who you are in prosperity, then it's going to hurt. Okay? But here's another side. Let's say you said something good about yourself. You have to hear that too. Okay? Because everything is showing you what you're creating all the time. Now, let's go to the last step. Let's say you behave out of pocket. You behave negatively. You react, okay? You like criticize, you flip off someone, you cut someone off, whatever. Something like that, okay? Now, that has to come back and happen to you. But it is going to come back, depending on how many times you've done it, it's going to come back as a bigger discipline. Because you're not realizing that what you did 2 weeks ago is happening to you right now, and now you're going in victim consciousness, so you're creating a bigger reality around that, and your positive angels are going to try to send you a message by trying to force pause your game. And how they do that is a little accident, a little interrupt, a little script change, and a little abrupt situation that's going to shock you into a pause so that you can recalibrate, because they can see that you are literally going in a downward spiral. Is this making sense, Andy? Because I know you're kind of okay. If for some reason I'm not, let me know. Is there anything? Okay, good. So, right now, let's go to the positive side of this. And I'll give you a story. One of the things that I realized about, like, when I kind of found all my disciples and my houses, and I was like, oh, shoot, like I have some cancer in some places, which is like diseased parts of my consciousness. Let's just say that. And so I'm really working on those things. So I'm working on being deliberate. I'm working on showing up in love, speaking love, thinking in love. And then, when the negative thoughts come in, I'm doing the work, and it's like taking a lot of my time, but it's a lot of spirit work. It's not a lot of physical reality. So, every other week I have my son, and he's got the zoomies. It's middle of winter. So, got to find a place for him to run it out. And of course, the only place really open and available is the urban trampoline house that we have near our home. It's Saturday afternoon in the middle of the day, which means that every other parent is thinking exactly what I'm thinking. It's not like a Monday afternoon. It's like there's birthday parties happening there. And the whole drive, I'm starting to get this like anxiety because I'm going to be there for 5 hours guaranteed because that's what it takes for him. Okay. And there has been several times before where I have gotten there with there's not one seat, not one seat. It's dark in there. It's cement floors. It smells like a foot. I mean, it's not fun. Okay. And again, it's a bunch of sugar shock kids running everywhere, like playing in these dark spaces. It's interesting. And, I've always kind of made the best of it because, I'm always choosing love with my son. And so I always like, figure out to get some like crappy little chair, but it's always like I can't hook to the Wi-Fi or no place to put my laptop until like 4 hours later, and that's been the story. So of course, we're going to the trampoline house. Who do you think's in my ear? All those little angels I've created from every other time and experience and proof of circumstances. And I'm going, okay, I'm feeling that anxiety. I'm feeling it. They're speaking to me, but I'm not necessarily like inviting. But what I did notice is we start to walk through the door, and I notice that there's a line coming out of the door. And like that circumstantial proof, it started to cause a little bit of a reaction with me. And the reaction was like, I got to get in there and find a seat. Like that was the gut reaction. It's like I've got it because I've got to set up camp and then lock myself in there because I know I'm going to be here. I've never seen it this crowded before. And then right when I was starting to have like that word to Luke, I stopped myself and I paused and I'm like, hold on. I cannot do this to myself today. I will not do this because I will cast a spell on myself. So I decided that I understand, I understand it's crazy. There's no room. Kids are coming out of everywhere. The line is out the door, which means that, it's not a very big place. Proof is that I'm not going to get a chair. So I just accept it. I 100% accept it. And then I go, okay, first I pause. I accepted the logic. I accepted it. I'm not delusional. I was like, okay. But what I decided to do is, well, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to 5 hours create positive angels. That means that I can bless everybody. I can stand here or sit on the concrete floor and I can literally just, if I have no Wi-Fi, I am going to do nothing but bless people and praise people and imagine people in white light and make it smell better in here and all kinds of things because I'm not getting out of it. I'm showing up to this crowded space because I created it this way from a number of times building up to this. And now I have an opportunity to clear out all those angels, put in new angels, and it's physical reality. So I kind of decide, I even let people go ahead of me and I'm like putting white light bubbles on them. And I just noticed that I stopped worrying about where I was going to sit. And I started concentrating on like bringing a lot of prosperity and energy of joy in this place because, that is my job as a child of God is to create no matter where we are. So, it takes like 20 minutes. We finally get in. He gives me his shoes and I've got my backpack with my laptop. And, I'm not expecting anything. I'm just like, dark. You couldn't even get in. And so I start to walk through the back because, it's like, it's really dark back there. So nobody really wants to sit back there. So I thought, who cares? I'll sit back there and I'll just pretend I'm God for 5 hours. So I start walking back and I look over and it's got this like really cool bar that like circles and it's like you can order food and drinks, but it's more of like kid stuff, but it's real comfortable. The chairs are real comfortable. And I just look over and there's one chair that has a plug underneath it, but it's like really far away. And of course it's like, I'm looking at it and then the ego comes back and is like, you better run like hell and grab that chair. I was like, no, because that is exactly what Satan wants me to do. So, it's almost like how many times have you seen a parking spot and then someone pulls in? And so I just was like, okay, if this is for me, by the time I walk up there, it will be mine. And if someone else gets it, then I'm going to follow the plan. right? And so I'm walking really slow, and it's like no one sees it. This just happened on Sunday. No one's seeing it. And I'm like, so it seems so weird because it's the perfect place in the whole place for someone on their laptop. Okay, got the outlet, it's perfect. Lighting is good, chair is comfortable, it's like VIP. And I even asked the two people next to me, I'm like, someone's sitting here? Because it just seems so illogical that this perfect place would be available. And they were like, oh, I didn't even see that place. Both of them said that. Okay. So I sit down and I just said, thank you, Creator. Because if I would have come in with all my gang angels in selfishness, in lack, in scarcity, in judgment, how many people are out here, I would have doubled my dark team. And here's the thing you guys have to pay attention to that I didn't realize. The more dark angels I create because of that urban bounce, I leave an aspect of them there. So that place becomes haunted. Do you realize that? I don't take them all home with me. I leave an imprint, which means how haunted is this place? Because there's some feral kids there. And that means there's some irritated parents that are casting spells, thinking negative, talking smack. And that's why I feel so bad in there. So as I was sitting in the chair, I was realizing that I came that day at the most busiest time because not only could I shift my angelic team and create a new story and show up differently and show up in abundance and lack and all these things, but I was also helping all these other kids and parents in here because the next time that they walk in, it will have a different vibration. And that made me feel good. And I didn't realize that until I was actually writing this exact story, and Spirit channeled that through me, that I was also clearing the space. And so what we want to realize is that you're not just creating for you, you are negatively creating for every space you're in. So you are haunting your own home. You are infecting your own animals and your own pets. Okay? You are poisoning your own plumbing. You are poisoning your own food. You are poisoning your spouse. Okay? All of these things that you don't realize that you're doing, that when you realize you're doing it for yourself, that's one thing. But what you don't realize is that your womb is your womb. And so that little dark angelic energy you create, it is going to be in that environment. Because trust me, I used to do a bunch of house clearing, and every paranormal activity matched the host every time. The host was literally doing something that the entity was doing in the house. How's that? Right? Okay? And your pets will die of the exact sickness that you repress because that's how much they love you. Okay? Your kids will be walking around with the dark angels that you put inside of them during your pregnancy. So we have a lot of cleanup to do. Now, this conversation is not to go overwhelm you. It is about being proactive and realizing that, yes, you have been doing a lot of work, but the reason why it hasn't shifted is because you got to do it differently. Okay, you can't be positive in 1 hour and negative in another, because all you're doing is you're creating a huge war, a balance of positive and negative. And if it is about equal, you probably manifest nothing, because they're going to kind of like balance each other out. And again, we don't know what the tikkun looks like from the past lives. We don't know what you brought in. So every opportunity you have to show up differently because you're feeling bad, especially when you're feeling bad, is essential. And the last thing I want to talk about is curses, because curses that spiritual, loving people make are actually horrific when you start to understand them. And I'm going to give you an example. One of the things we learn in the Matrix, and I did this class on unconditional love, but is that worry is love. Okay? But when you worry about someone, you are cursing a dark angel for them. every time. Because worry is praying in evil, it's praying in darkness, it's praying in lack. And so you are creating them to be prey when you worry. Now, there's different levels of curses, right? You can speak sentences on them, you can spellcast on them, you can think entities on them. But one of the things that I see that families do to each other more than anything is through the curse of assumption. And I am super guilty of this, so I ain't no saint here. Okay? I see myself doing this quite often, and I'm catching myself. All right. The people that you've been with for a very long time, you know them. Okay? You know them. You know what they're going to do, and you know what they're not going to do. All right? And so one of our spiritual righteousnesses that happens is when we awaken and we start to do the inner work and we start to work on ourselves, and they're not. They're not. Okay? Then what's going to happen is you're going to start to perceive an assumption about them. You're going to start learning some of this stuff, even Kabbalah, but somehow you're not going to see it applying to them. You're going to see them doing the same thing they've ever done. So think about it. If I say to a woman, oh, well, just, go ask her husband if you can go on the trip, or go ask her husband what he thinks about this. They are so quick to give me an assumption of what he's going to say. Oh, I already know what he's going to say. He's going to say this. I already know how he's going to be when he gets home. He's going to be like this. And the assumption is a curse, because you are not giving them an opportunity to be different. You are cursing them to be the same. So no matter how much you want them to be different, they cannot, because it's your video game. And if you assume that they cannot change, and my boyfriend called me out on this, by the way, if we assume that they cannot change, then they cannot change because of our curse. Because our job is to see everyone from how Creator sees them. And if I can learn, then I want to actually assign positive angels for them instead of curse them with the assumption of they are never going to change. They're never going to heal. They're never going to wake up. They're never going to do it right. Or well, let's say you start to see some behavior that is in lack that they're doing. Okay. And you start to judge the behavior. Okay. You are assigning not an entity, a spell, or a curse based on what you witness and decide. As soon as you decide, that is the child of God creating a world. And so you are sentencing them to not wake up because you see them not waking up. You are sentencing them to stay sick because they don't want to eat well. Well, they eat processed food. Okay, I was doing this to my guy the other day. Like, he comes over, he's got a 6-pack. He's 56 years old. He looks like he's 30. Okay, the reason he could do this is because he never bought in to, like, food doesn't do anything to me. That's what he decided. Food does not affect me. He's never been in the hospital. He doesn't ever get sick. Okay, so he's like running errands while I'm teaching the other day. He comes home and he's eating strawberry Pop-Tarts. Okay, and of course, like, that inner nutrition inside of me is like looking at all the ingredients in that food. And I'm like, honey, what are you eating? He's like, strawberry Pop-Tarts, right? And I'm like, no, you can't eat that. And you realize what I'm doing to him right now is I am changing a belief system that is keeping him completely healthy, even though it might make me sick. Okay, and he was like, hold on, didn't you say that thoughts create reality? Like, he called me out. I was like, Argh. And so I was like, wow, I am actually going to just sit here in awe of you and watch you eat this Pop-Tart. That will metabolize perfectly for you. I had to catch myself, because the thing I've noticed a lot about our guys, you girls, is they don't get so infested in the nurturing outcome of what happens. And their bad behavior, if they don't believe it's bad, doesn't hurt them, because it's belief. But I could literally make my guy sick after 56 years by just telling him that those ingredients could hurt him too many times. Because he loves me. He wants to make me happy. He doesn't want to see me sad. He doesn't want to see me upset while he's eating Pop-Tarts. So what he's going to do is he's going to buy into that and be influenced by that to make me happy. And then he's going to get himself sick. I really hope you hear this because we are doing this all the time out of love, right? And what's happened is we've studied spirituality in the tree of knowledge, which means that we believe that we are mortal and that there is life and death and that things can hurt us. But if you go into the 99 of miracles, nothing can hurt the child of God unless they decide it can. So if I buy in, to all of the matrix of, oh, this causes cancer and this causes that, and I go, oh, I want to be healthy and spiritual and aware, and so I'm going to believe that, then I'm also going to tell my children that. And again, if they believe it's hurting them and they change their diet, then we're going to create positive angels. But if they don't believe it was going to hurt them, and I tell them that, and I worry about them, then I am not only cursing them, I am actually going to have some major karma and get the illness that I was worried about my person getting. Now, let's go back to COVID, shall we, ladies? Right? Those of us do-gooders, the righteous ones who were like anti-vax, okay? And we were like anti this and anti that. And we were really in judgment about our families doing it. And they were really in judgment about us not doing it. And some of you guys went through a war with your 3D world versus your 5D thinking. You were like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not taking the vaccine. And then the other side was like, you're not taking the vaccine. You're going to kill us all. Who's right and who's wrong? Well, I will tell you right now, okay, that if you believe that the vaccine was going to keep you safe, then it did. 100%. Now, if you didn't really want to take it, you don't really trust the government, but you were pushed or bullied into taking it, then you might manifest an illness from it. If you were terrified of it and you judged someone who did it, I've seen this in so many of my clients. You judged someone who did it, and then you got COVID and didn't even have the vaccine. I witnessed that 3 times last year. Of clients of mine that were super in judgment of their partner's belief systems about vaccines or doing it so that they could travel or doing it, and like was really in judgment about how unconscious they were for taking the vaccine, and then they were the one that got COVID. Because again, you have to understand that if someone has a different belief system than you and you interfere in that and you cause them to believe in what you're saying, you are cursing both of you. Now, what I highly recommend is that you know that everything comes from the Creator and the Creator is good. And so what you do is instead, you decide to play the child of God Creator and say, the Pop-Tart that my guy's eating that he's probably ate his entire life that's never hurt him is still not going to hurt him. And I'm going to witness proof of that. And maybe one day I'll eat one. And now I'm changing into bad and good and life and death. And I'm shifting over into the tree of life where everything is a placebo and everything is alchemy. Okay? And so like he's been really good for me because like I feel like he came in like almost finished with his journey, and there was just few things that he needed me to help him clear, and then there's some few things that he was here to teach me. But like his health, his financial structure, the way he like lives in his life, he just never bought in to the social norms, and so he's never actually experienced any of those things that most people experience. Because he's like, I just don't believe in that. And I'm like, hallelujah. Because I don't want to believe in that either. Okay, so I'm telling you, I know it's coming from a loving place, but when you assume on your partner, you're cursing them. And because you curse them, you curse yourself. Because the Creator is always going to look at who you're cursing and then look at you. Well, let me see what she's doing. So you can't tattletale on someone without being looked at, by the way. Because what you are usually judging for, you're doing somewhere else. Okay? Because here's the thing, you might not have gone out and taken the vaccine, but you might have gotten righteous anxiety. You might have gotten depression. You might have like been on a whole rampage of horrible energy during that time because you felt like you knew more and you were trying to protect everyone. So you probably got sicker than the person who took the vaccine thinking, shit, now I can travel. Think about it. The vibration of someone who takes the vaccine so they can be free creates freedom. That was my guy. He's like, yeah, I took it so I could fly to Brazil. I was like, oh, I don't want to be with you, right? And then he's like, okay, can't you detox? Aren't you a witch? Can't you detox me? Like, that's what he said. And then I thought about it and I was like, huh, this is so good for me because I'm seeing my own judgment as an alchemist. And I know nothing can hurt me if I don't think it can. So I process that. But you guys see where I'm going with this? Because it is stuff we do all the time that keeps us hiding, that keeps us separate from our partners, that keeps our kids sick, that keeps all these things happening, and you don't realize is that you are generating every single thing from either your opposition beliefs or your ally beliefs 24 hours a day. And if you can take heart into this channeled class and message today, and you can start showing up differently, it's going to be a matter of time until you start to see things differently. When you start to see things differently, you'll start to feel things differently, and then things will be different. But it's not going to happen from a decision because you have actually created life with your thought, words, and deeds. And so you're going to have to go in and change that life before you get a new one. And hopefully this class helps you understand the time buffer a little bit. It understands the cause and effect. I highly recommend that you just go scan the 7 Hermetic laws. Andy, maybe you and I can do something with this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I would love to create a fun game because this is a really heavy topic. And every single one of those things, the creating of the angels, the curses, the spells, the assumption spells and curses, we are doing all day long with no negative intent. And that is the hard part. We have good hearts, kind personalities, and loving souls. And this is what we're doing all day long from good intentions. So again, it's like we want to get playful with these really uncomfortable spaces because like it won't matter what you know, guys. That's the thing I need you to understand is your intelligence doesn't get you into 5D. Your heart coherence does. Your field vibration does. Right? Your womb got to be purified. Okay? It's got to have 51% light. So if you're having a shit day and you're just like, I'll try better tomorrow, that isn't something that's easy to clean up when you've created life. Because again, those little curses and spells, they all have a germination time. They all have their own seed life. They all have their own harvest date. So if you spoke it and it happened, you would be able to catch it. But it doesn't work like that with time and space governed by Saturn. It's going to be like you think it now, you don't worry about it. And then when it happens to you, you feel victimized. So when you feel victimized, you create more negative angels. That's how this mess has occurred. Because great people like us are doing this all day long with positive intent. Because, don't you think I would have been right to like be irritated about how busy urban air was and how, why are so many people and there's no seat? And like, you can understand my irritation, but I'm not helping myself. I'm cursing all of those people. And my vessel has a lot more light. So the curses I create are a lot bigger, you see? So this is why if you create a lot of self-awareness in a life, and then you have a lot of negative angels, you are not punished, but your karma is much more intense because you did it as a higher level of creator. You created karma spells and angels from higher level of awareness. So the higher level of awareness you get, the more intelligent your angels are. Okay? The higher level, they're your DNA. So if you have become more Christ-like and you're casting spells, then you're casting them like an angel. You're casting them like a creator. It's no longer innocent. You're not being proactive, you're being reactive. And again, I know how hard this is because I gave you some real life situations here. There's no spiritual like guru. This is like real life mom stuff, real life married life that we are doing. And this is why nothing's changing. Because it's always going to be the algorithm. What shows up on your feed is going to be your common denominator. And when we don't like what we're seeing, we've got to see, what am I creating? Okay. And I saw that there was a question and I just want to make sure that I answer it. Yes, go ahead, Natalie. I'll do my best.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, hi. So speaking of desire, so what if you have like a choice to make, let's say multiple choice,
Yes.
and you can't make up your mind,
Mm-hmm.
or anyway, yeah, what do you do
Okay,
if
so
you
I
kind of
can
split?
tell you several of you guys have this. It's the indecision angel. You have
Okay.
literally created the angel of indecision, and that is why you can't make the choice. So this is what I would recommend that you do, is if you have created that, like you cannot make the choice or it's causing a lot of like back and forth, is you pause the game, okay? You make no choice. You do not make a choice in no choice. You do not make a choice in indecision because it will be the negative. You make no choice. No choice.
Okay.
Okay. You go and you do some prosperity meditations, you do some prosperity journaling, you count your blessings, you remember 5 amazing things, you create a gratitude list, you get yourself in physical prosperity, in the remembrance of prosperity and the feeling of prosperity. And then you say to the highest version of me, make the choice for me with absolute certainty when the right time is. And then you do not micromanage the time, and you do not go rushing back into lack of time, lack of opportunity, lack of choice. And let's say you have to make this choice by tomorrow, then you say, I am not going to make this choice in lack. But if you can get like body, mind, and soul all in prosperity, get yourself on like a sensory feeling, because you want to engage all 5 senses in this abundance feeling. And then what you would do is you would sit with yourself, call your angels in, your positive angels in. You would actually like read what you're going to. This is choice number 1. What is my body feeling? This is choice number 2. What is my body feeling? Because think about it. If I call in all the abundance and all the prosperity angels and I'm feeling and I'm sensing, then what's happening is that's who is channeling me. So then I would ask the question out loud, and then I would see what showed up in my body. Because your body will say yes or no through a feeling sensation. So, like, let's say your stomach contracts, that's a no. Let's say you speak one of the ideas out loud and it gives you a light feeling. Choose it. Do not second guess it. Go. Now, that might be hard for you, but if you do it from a place of prosperity, it will be the perfect situation for you, regardless of what happens. Because here's the thing. Ultimately, every choice is the perfect choice. You can't get it wrong. You can't make a bad choice, because even if you go and do the thing that falls apart and blah, 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 well, then it's urban air. You have an opportunity to be the creator in that horrible place. So it's always going to be a win-win. But if you are looking at scarcity, if you are looking at lack, then you're going to get pushed into being bullied to making a decision because your lack of time or whatever you believe, and your belief system is the summation of your angelic realm. Okay? So when we change a mindset, we're actually changing a set of angels. We're changing the set of angels. And so I would say if you have a good amount of time before you have to make this choice, I would highly recommend maybe you watch this class one more time. And then, you practice going over into the pause and creating positive angels for you. So at least you have, some 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 allies here. Because I think some of you don't have that many light allies because you just keep creating more lack, and lack is always going to be the dark allies. And they will always have your best interest. But their best interest is to repeat the pattern, to keep the loop, to keep you in separation because they're in separation. They want you to do what they're doing. Okay? And if you created that baby out of lack, then that baby is going to keep you in lack no matter what. And how you know which angels you're listening to and operating from is prosperity or scarcity. That is, you do not like, well, this one felt good. It's either prosperity or it's lack. If you are lacking anything, it's negative, no matter how good it sounds. Okay? And if it makes you settle, it's still lack. Okay?
Mhm.
We know that. So now you might have to settle for this particular choice because you didn't have enough time. But remember, when you pause the game, Creator will actually give you bonus time somehow because you're earning points, you're earning light, you're earning more angels. The more light angels you have, the more you control time. The more light angels you have, the more you control space. The more light angels you have, the more you control money. Okay? And so, Andy, can you see like what we could do with this? Like so many things. Yes, please speak.
Oh, can I ask the question? So what if you don't feel anything, but you still kind of conflicted? But mostly, yeah, like you don't feel anything.
Then you didn't
Then
prosperity yet. Because if you go to prosperity, then there's positive energy inside of you that will give you a feeling. But are you paying attention? See, the thing is you have to get still. You guys, God is in the stillness, not in the rush. It's not in the excitement. It's not in the pleasure. It's not in the pain. It's in the stillness. So you've got to get still. All right. And I would say that even before you start this process, if you cannot be still for 3 or 4 minutes with 432 hertz or some sort of binaural wave, I would start there first. Because the thing is like, remember, darkness is always going to rush you and make you feel like you have no choice. It's always going to tell you you're running out of time and that you need to choose now. And what Creator says is be still and know that I'm God. So if you be still and you go, hold on a second, this is not that serious. And right now I'm going to start practicing prosperity. So I'm going to count my blessings. I'm going to spend time. And then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to ask the question out loud, all the different choices out loud, and see what bodily reaction you have. Because if you just think it, you won't have the reaction. You have to say it out loud to get the body reaction, to get the emotion. I can't tell you how many times like I get on sessions every week and people say, oh yeah, I was going through this, and then they start crying. And it did not bother them when they were thinking about it, but it did create emotion when they spoke it. Because again, that is going to be how you speak your truth. And you don't know your truth until you say it out loud. Also, I'll go look in the mirror. Another thing you can do is go back to your Imagineering work, Natalie, that we did in non-duality, and remember who your highest timeline is. Who is she? What choice would she make? That's like the quick one. Would she make this choice or that choice? Is this more like her or more like my ego? And that could be a 10-second choice if you have no time. You guys, if you have no time to make a choice, that's what I would choose. You would put her, the highest level of you that you've ever imagined, into your scenario and let her or him pick. Okay? But this is going to take work. Okay? This is not a quick fix. There is no pill. You've got to do the work, but you will inherit the kingdom. Because the kingdom rules are prosperity. Okay? The matrix rules are governed by lack. So if you want to enter the kingdom, you've got to go to the 99% empty space and play in the abundance and prosperity and the blessings. Act as creator, give as creator, receive as creator so that you could give. Okay?
Can I ask, as far as you said something about Venus in retrograde, and
We're
you
not
said,
talking about that in this class.
oh,
I'm not
okay,
going to
sorry.
talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, I am going to redo that class though. So if you weren't there, because it's a lot of different energy, and I don't want to confuse everyone because this is confusing enough. So that's going to be a different class, and I'm going to exclusively talk about that retrograde and your disciples and where you are in that and how to get to the next level. But I will tell you, please do not do that class until you have practiced this one. Okay? Because you realize that you're always going to take you with you everywhere you go. And if you have an army of lack, then that is what you're going to recreate no matter how wonderful you are. Okay? All right. So that's all I've got for that. Go ahead, Andy, because I got to wrap. Go for it.
Okay, so I actually have a great game idea that it's been playing around in my head, but now it like seems to have come to fruition. But
Okay.
I wanted to thank you, one, for sharing your trampoline park story. I've been there with Luke, so I know. And
Yeah.
I've been practicing just receiving everybody's stories. Like my mom tells the same stories over and over. And when we receive it different, we appreciate it again, and we can appreciate them different, and then we can receive like our ancestors' stories different.
Mhm.
So when you told the story, because you had told it to me already, I was like, oh, I get to practice.
Mhm.
And I received so much in the part where you talked about blessing, because that's where I kind of thrive in blessing people.
Mhm.
And it really just like brought me to tingles and tears and really allowed me to practice in a space that is easier too, right? Because we're all one and we work
Mhm.
together to help each other. And with my mom, I've been practicing it, but I really think it was just a great place to do it.
I
And
love that.
also the same thing with the food. Like I've been like blessing the food that they're eating and all that. And it's changing. And I promise, like for Natalie, like I promise you that you can do this.
Absolutely. And
I
again,
promise. Yeah.
you can also go out, like Andy said, and physically go out and bless 100 people out in the world, genuinely from your heart, not to get something, because that will actually also shift your vibration and it will bring in more like divine help in your choice. Okay. So that would be a physical thing. Now, I just want to run on one thing you said, Andy, because it's so brilliant, is that you said that we have these people in our life that tell the same story over and over again. What if they were telling us the same story so that we could bless the story instead of judge it, right?
Mhm.
It's like they keep telling it to us so that we can assign a positive angel where they can't do that for themselves, but we can say, and this time I bless that story, right? Because again, it's like there's a reason why they're on a broken record. And think about it through the law of assumption. If I'm like, here we go again, she's getting senile and she's getting dementia, I'm cursing her with dementia. And that will come back on me. I just now put an angel in my body that says, let's create dementia. And if I focus on that too long, I will inherit that. So I love Andy's game. We bless what they say. Remember, they know not what they do. There's your scripture. And then you say, I bless this. And then you see them the way Creator sees them. And now you put
Some of
that
the
imprint in their story, right?
some
And
of the
now what
stories
you've
are
done is
good,
you've helped
Jess.
yourself and them.
Like some of them are good stories. They're just the impatience of I've heard this before, but
Right.
they're stories about my family and like things that like I can take note of. So
Yeah,
if I
you
can
could
do
write it
like
down for them, right? You could take
so
note. You
because
could create a little book.
so like if I can do like what I just sat and I was like, oh, I heard this and I can receive something new from it. If I can do that with my family and then like imprint the positivity of my ancestors, and then when it's negative, bless, it changes everything. So
Everything.
it's really changing quickly the more we do this.
Well, and
So
again, like I said, it's going to be a momentum thing. Nothing is going to happen. Everything's going to go wrong. Everything's going to fall apart in the beginning. Everything is going to go wrong like several times because as you're adding in the light, okay, and you're starting to lead the dark, the opposition is going to work harder to get you back to where you were. And you've got to you've got to like walk on water here. You've got to just keep going and knowing. And then when you're just like so comfortable with wherever you go is where creator wants you to be, whether it's a busy place or the wrong choice of a trip, you know that everything from the creator is good and that you're supposed to be where you are to change the vibration, to bring the light. So even if you guys find yourself in the shittiest part of town or in the shittiest place, or why is creator putting you there to be the light and maybe in some major karmic loops that you were walking into. So think about it. What if, like, you know, she's blessing this story, I'm blessing this trampoline park, and because I did that, I avoid getting real cancer. You see, so you won't know if you're constantly eating from the tree of knowledge what creator is actually gifting to you by showing up differently because it's a quantum leap. But what will happen, and Andy and I are seeing this because her and I are actually like in real time, no further than you guys are. We're doing this in real time with you, is that we're seeing that, you know, it was getting worse and it was getting worse and it was getting worse and it was getting worse. And then it was like, all of a sudden, we got better in the worse. We got happier in the worse. We got healthier in the worse. Like we were like, okay, in the worst. And then the field starts to change. So if you're looking for logic, this is not your game. Because the logic is going to go, I'm doing everything right, and I'm not receiving any blessings. I'm blessing all these people, and no one's blessing me. And as soon as you said that, all your work is gone. And you have to begin again, like Buddha says. So Creator is watching you like you are interviewing for a job all the time. And the more knowledge you have about yourself and about the vessel and about Kabbalah and about all the things we've studied in the master classes for several years, then the more that the creator is going to want to use you for this next world that we're building. But again, if you have accumulated a lot of negative energy, you cannot move into the next game until you go through the purification. And the purification feels exactly like a detox. It's like a crackhead detoxing the matrix. And it's going to hurt and it's not going to feel good. But if you keep showing up, right? I have seen proof. She has seen proof. And, you know, thousands of other people have seen proof. Okay. And more millions, because there are literally people living in the kingdom in this game operating like this. And you see how it just requires childlike love, not logical understanding. See, I have come to believe that the more that you know logically and intellectually, the slower you go on this journey. Because it comes down to like the Covain vax. It comes down to like the nutrition. You know, you have studied so deeply that you have built up all these beliefs that even though you know you're immortal over here, you still think the body's mortal. And so you're micromanaging what you're eating and everyone else is eating, and the world is not a safe place and everything is poison. And all you're doing is creating angels to prove that for you. So it don't work. And here's what I would say from Andy and I. Don't believe us? Test it. Test it. Because that is one thing that I hang my hat on with Kabbalah is it may not be logic from the tree of life, but it is logic of the tree of knowledge, but it is logic from the tree of life. And it proves itself very quickly if you do not give up. If you have consistency and you continue to show up, you will inherit the earth, literally. Okay? So we can talk later about more games and stuff, because I think that every single one of us is doing this with good intentions. And we are basically sabotaging our own divine growth here. So let's focus on that. Hopefully I gave enough. If there's missing pieces, we have started a Facebook Quantum Kabbalah group where this way I have other contributors, other other gals, Divine Feminine, that are working in their vessel creation right now that can add insights and other ideas here. And it's a collaboration fellowship space. I'm back on Facebook, but only for this group. And it's just a test pilot, okay, to see like what happens. But I have a new podcast, Quantum Kabbalah for the Modern Feminine Energy, Divine Feminine. And again, it's these kind of conversations. It's these kind of conversations because when you kind of study Kabbalah on a bigger level, it can be very generalized. And we want to know what we're doing right and wrong every single day that is either getting us 10 steps forward or 10 steps back. Okay, so look for Quantum Kabbalah on Facebook page if you want to join that. Where's the podcast? I'll put all the podcasts that I have cooking up right now in your school app or on that Facebook page. That will be kind of an easier way for us to commune for a while until we decide what other platform we want. But I miss the interactiveness of being able to share like documents and pages and things like that. So we're going to try this out. Because again, this is your year, you guys. This is the 9 year. This is the year of the snake. You can shed this old vessel. You can step into your power. You can be everything you want to be, but you've got to change that little army that you have created to protect you. Now you have to set them free and create an army of freedom within you. Okay, so I will see you guys in the next class, and I will be re-recording our last class as soon as I can, and that will be uploaded as soon as possible. Okay, all right guys, love you, see you soon, bye.